another super easy recipes. Today I'm going to be cooking a beef stew with aubergine. Sometimes it's called eggplant or brinjal, depending on what part of the world you live in. Now I've been making this dish a lot recently because my 2-year-old loves it. I think it's because the meat is soft and it's tasty without being overpowering.
The key ingredients are obviously beef and aubergine. I'm using 500 grams of beef. You'll also need a large onion and a lime. Now for me, turmeric is the key spice, and if turmeric is all you have, then turmeric is all you need. But if you have other spices lying around, you can use those as well. I like to use a bit of ginger and a bit of cinnamon. You'll need tomato puree and sugar. Some dried fruit. I'm using raisins. You'll also need a tin of chopped tomatoes and some stock. I'm using a stock cube. Begin your preparation by slicing the aubergine. Then put the sliced aubergine into a baking tray and sprinkle salt and drizzle oil on both sides. Then put the baking tray into the oven and bake on a high heat, about 220 Celsius, for about 15 to 20 minutes. Next, roughly cut the onion and fry it on a medium heat with a good lug of oil until it is translucent. When the onions are translucent, add in the beef to brown. I'm not going to overstir it because I want the beef to turn a nice golden colour. When the beef has a bit of colour, I'm going to add in 2 teaspoons of turmeric and a teaspoon of ginger and a teaspoon of cinnamon. Stir the spices in well. After 2 or 3 minutes, stir in the tomato paste. Use about a tablespoon and a teaspoon of sugar. After a few minutes, you'll notice a lot of sticky bits on the bottom of the pan. Pour in a little of the stock and give the bottom of the pan a good scrape. Then add in the tinned tomatoes and the rest of the stock. Stir everything in, and once the mixture begins to bubble, reduce the heat. In the meantime, I'm going to check on the aubergines, which have been in the oven for about 20 minutes, and I'm going to add them to the mixture. Traditionally, the aubergine would have been fried, but to fry aubergine requires a lot of oil, and baking is frankly much healthier. You could add the aubergine to the stew without baking at all, but I think baking it beforehand gives a better texture and flavour. This stew needs to be cooked for 2 to 2.5 hours, and it needs a lot more liquid, so I'm going to add in a can of water. I'm going to set the timer for 1.5 hours, and I'm going to let the stew simmer for that time. 1.5 hours has passed, and I'm going to check the stew for a number of things. Firstly, that there is enough liquid. Secondly, I want to check how soft the meat is. Do this by sticking a fork into the meat. If it goes in easily, it's cooked. This needs a bit more time. Thirdly, I want to add in the juice of a lime and a handful of dried fruit. Replace the lid and continue cooking for 20 to 30 minutes. About 30 minutes have passed since I last checked. There's enough liquid and I don't need to add any more. The fork goes into the meat much easier this time, but I prefer it a little bit softer. Check the stew for seasoning. I'm going to add a little salt to mine. I'm going to replace the lid and cook it for another 20 to 30 minutes. 30 minutes have passed and you can see that this time the sauce is nice and thick. If you think it is too thick, you can just add a little water. I'm going to check the meat, and this time the fork goes into it very easily, which means that the meat will be very tender and tasty. And that's it. Serve with plain or saffron rice. The best thing about this dish is that it is even better the next day.